Good morning, good morning. I want to welcome you guys all to the 2021. Almost said 2020 because we kind of skipped through that. But today we're going to give our candidates the opportunity to talk about why they are running for the board of directors position. We have 3 open positions. And we are recording this just so you guys know. I am going to read the rules of this meeting, and then we'll just follow the agenda and go from there. So what we're going to do is start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you guys don't mind standing. All right, ready to begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll do a few announcements. I've already stated that we have 6 candidates for 3 positions at this time. Let me know if can you guys hear me?
No, it's not very good.
Not very good? Test 1, 2. Well, I think this mic is a little better, but I'll talk a little louder. Like that? There we go. We haven't had an open meeting in a while, so. So April 24th, we have it down as our election, is our election date. It's recommended that you guys, by Tuesday, the 20th, and that's going to be 4/20/21, is that you guys actually send all your ballots in. And so what that means is if you don't send it in by that time, it may not get in on time. On that Friday, what will happen is they will go to their mailbox, their P.O. box, to pick it up. But if you had to, you can check in with Janine on if you needed to walk it in. And Janine can cover that, and she'll be covering that at our next open board meeting. Next week, they're going to be mailing out the ballots, and so you guys will be able to receive that along with the candidate statements. I think that's all the basic announcements. I'll review the standing rules. So persons posing questions to the candidate must be a property owner in good standing and may ask questions of the candidates in oral or written form. Tenant members and property owners not in good standings who are not eligible to vote may not present questions to the candidates. If you would like to write your question and have the moderator read it, you must send your questions in advance to info@SBLA. And that deadline was Friday the 19th at 4 p.m. You may ask your question of all candidates, or you may direct your question to an individual candidate. For questions posed to all candidates, we will rotate who answers first. So just a heads up, whoever's sitting on the end, you will more than likely be first or last answer. You got 30 seconds to let that sink in, sorry. So written questions. So I will read the questions, and then there will be limited to 2 minutes to answer. So the candidates will have 2 minutes to answer. Janine has her timer over there to try to keep us on time. Our goal is to take approximately 1 hour so we can respect everyone's time. I know we're going to have possibly a handful of questions. We do have 2 to 3 parties that have sent in questions, and there are multiple questions. So we'll try to read the first 2 to 3 questions depending on time. So I'll try my best to manage that time. And then for the oral questions, once we're done reading the questions, what we're going to do is go to the crowd and see if there's any questions out there. I'm going to read the rules regarding that, and then I'm going to read it again once it's time for you guys to come out. So it must be a question. No political statements. The person posing the question must give their name and address and will be limited to 1 minute to ask a question. The candidates will be limited to 2 minutes each to answer. Speakers must observe rules of decorum and not engage in obscene or gestures, shouting, profanity, or any other disruptive behavior. If a speaker is in the middle of the sentence when the time is called, he or she may finish their statement, their thoughts. The time guidelines ensure that others will have an opportunity to speak. Speaker may not allot their time to others. All persons must follow the standing rules. And so the reason why we have those rules are pretty common sense. We want you guys to ask real questions, not just real factual questions, so that they have the ability to answer those questions. So what I am going to do is, we're going to start from this side of Phil, and just introduce your first, last name, and how long you've lived in the community, and then we'll just pass it down this way. And you may have to turn on your mic.
Good morning. My name is Phil Rigoni. I'm a resident of Spring Valley Lake. I was married here 25 years ago to my wife. We spent 6 years on Harbor Drive and recently moved back here because our business is growing quite large. So we're back in the area. We've been here for over a year now.
Hi, good morning. My name is CJ Eversole. Grew up here from 83 to 93. Grew up on Autumn Leaves Drive. A year ago, moved my family back here and up to Sierra Vista is where we live now.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brad Lettner. After I retired from the Army in 2014, it took us 2 years to find our house here in Spring Valley Lake. Unfortunately, it was bought out from under us, and so we rented for about a year and a half looking for our next dream home, which we finally found. So I guess that'd be 2017. We rented for a few years and bought, or a year and a half, and bought our house that we live in now in 2018.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Luis Ponce, and I am currently an incumbent and running for a second term. I have lived in the community since 1994. My wife and I first rented, and then we bought the house in 1998. We raised our children here. I've been involved in volunteer work since they were in junior high. I actually started the PTA association at the school they were going to. Worked with the church council, finance council, and Little League for many years, and I'm hoping to continue the work with the Spring Valley Lake Board, especially because of the upcoming possible purchase of the country club and golf course and maintenance of the lake. Appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Stolfus. I would first like to thank all you guys for coming out. It's the people that are involved in this community that really help us keep it rolling. So that's awesome to see you, and those of you that are going to be watching on video, thanks as well. I first moved to Spring Valley Lake 29 years ago. Bought my first house over on the equestrian side. Lived there for about 10 years, and then made the move over to the lakeside, and I've been here since then. Just love the community and glad to finally try to throw my hat in the ring and get involved in making some of the decisions as well. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Joanne Romero. I'm also running for a second term. I moved up here it's been 38 years. It's almost the anniversary of when we first purchased our lot on Greensboro Road. And we built a house there and moved here sometime in July of the same year. So it's been just about 38 years. Raised our kids up here, love this place. I know some of you know this, but an interesting fact is that I used to come up here before there was anything here. My parents bought a lot on Golf Course Drive, and they would come up and visit the lot. So as a teenager, I would come up with them. And I got to watch the lake being filled in January of 1970. And before that, I got to watch the lake being excavated. What a fantastic piece of engineering it is. Anyway, I just love this place, and I want to help out as much as I can to keep our property values high and to maintain the integrity of all of the homes and properties here. And so thank you so much for coming out today, and thank you for your vote, I hope.
Thank you guys so much. We are running Facebook Live, and we're also running it on another stream. And so what I want to do is I'm going to pan our camera around so they can actually see the participation of our community. Our goal in the future is to get more residents involved. This is exactly how associations are ran. If you look around the state, look around the country, they're successful because of the people. They're successful because people like you guys show up to meetings, people get involved. We have different committees and task force. And without that, an association would not be successful. So I do want our community to see the involvement and see who shows up to these meetings. But not only that, we really want to get some more involvement in our communities. And that's how things are changed. That's how things take place is by community involvement. And I also want to thank the candidates for running. We have 3 positions open and 6 people have stepped up. And being a board of director, I sit in the meetings, and it's not easy business. It may look easy from the outside, but there's a lot of responsibility. We have over a $5 million budget, over 4,215 lots in Spring Valley Lake. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of hot topics coming up. So we're probably going to touch on some of those topics today, but I truly want to thank our community. I want to thank the individuals that are running. This is an important topic, and it's really important that we have these individuals running. And so I'll go ahead and move forward. We're going to start off now. We're on number 6. We're going to start off with candidates. Basically, you guys will give an opening statement, and it's approximately 3 minutes. So Janina, have the timer, and we'll start from this side with Joanne. Just give us your opening statement, and at the end we'll give a closing statement. Now we're just looking for your opening statement, and then we'll move right on along. Okay?
Okay, well, I guess, I already introduced myself, and I do know a lot of you out there. I recognize a lot of faces, even though you're wearing masks. But there are some new folks out there. Hope to get to know you. Anyway, the reason that I would like to run again, there are so many projects that we're working on right now. I like to see things to completion, and that's my goal here is to, like I said earlier, maintain the integrity of our community that I love so much. I mean, my roots are so deep here. Somebody asked me, well, where are you going to retire? And I said, I'm here. I'm already here. So, but my main goal is to see things to completion. I've been highly involved in the community planning committee, and I am the liaison to that committee currently. And that is a very important committee that's working on this possible golf course country club purchase. I really think that we really need to work on that, see it to completion. I hate to leave now, but I just hope that I can get another term. Also, we're working on the Meadowlark Park out here, and there are so many other projects that I'd like to see completed and have an opportunity to work on them and continue on as a board member. I think probably the 2 most important things that I have to say are we need to maintain really good communication and transparency with our community. Number 1. Number 2 is property value. We need to maintain our great property value and increase our property value. So pretty much everything that I do has those 2 things in mind. So thank you, and let's move on to the next person.
All right, thank you. Again, Dave Stolfus. So my wife and I are just so proud of this community. And that's kind of my major drive in wanting to run for the board. Lived here for a while, as we stated before, and I'm always so excited to show off this place to people who don't know about it. I mean, we have friends that live in the high desert that had never been here until, a couple years ago. And that turn from Bear Valley coming down the parkway, and it's like, okay, here it is. This is where we live. And so wanting to do a little bit more to maintain that pride and maintain this community. We are all about the amenities. I mean, I'm an active user of the beach, the parks, take the grandkids to the parks all the time, the concerts, all the holiday events that we have. I mean, I really get out and use the amenities, use the community as a whole, and just want to get involved in maintaining and improving all that. And that's really the major drive behind wanting to join the board of directors. Thank you.
Well, as I mentioned previously, I've been on the board for 2 years, and over that period, I've learned a lot about what happens in the background for running this homeowner association. One of the biggies that I think is looming ahead is the transparency that is, I think, one of the concerns of our board, so that everybody will have access to the numbers and whatnot, and they will be posted. It's a process for that to happen. The golf course and country club purchase, I know there are people who are maybe sitting on the fence in regards to that, but I think you should also consider that even if you don't use the lake, I don't even know how to swim, but I definitely appreciate the value of the lake to our community. It's the same thing with the golf course. This is something that is, even if you don't golf, it's something that people have an immediate impression upon our community when you drive into it. You see the country club and golf course, and a lot of people just assume it was part of the homeowner association. And that's something that, if it makes sense, and it has to make sense for everybody, then that's something I'm definitely going to support. In regards to the assessments, our current board, we chose not to increase the assessments because financially we didn't seem to feel the need for it. And we can't just willy-nilly raise assessments for people unless there's a justification for it. I think the other thing that we have to appreciate is the amenities that we have here are continuing to grow, and the level of use that we will have with the purchase of the country club and golf course, again, if it makes sense, will only increase, and you'll see a large impact, not just on people's use of it, but also in terms of your property values. They will be tied to it because it's in our community, and now it becomes officially part of our community if that happens. So I appreciate everything. I also want to thank the other candidates for stepping up, the ones who haven't been, because it's kind of an unknown. If you haven't served in that role before, you may have no idea, and I can honestly tell you I did not realize all of the issues that show up, big and small, as well as the legal issues that pop up. It's been an eye-opener. I think that if you're not scared, you should be a little bit, but it's a learning process, and I'm glad that you guys are stepping up and running for the position. Thank you.
Good morning again, everybody. The main reason that I talked to my friend Dave about running for the board several months ago, we started considering this, was the complexity of the decisions that were circulating in the community about the country club, etc. I believe in the vision of this community. It's where I live here. The vision is to be the premier place to live in all of the high desert. And so all the other things are important, but I believe that it's important to have a voice on the board that is looking long-term, not just finishing the current projects or waiting for the next crisis to react to, or waiting to the next community member to rise up and say, hey, I've got a great idea for a new thing we should do, but having a long-term vision for remaining and increasing our position as the premier place. There are people now, business owners, that don't choose to live here. Maybe if they want a 2.5 acre lot, this is not the place for them. So I understand that not everybody wants to live in a neighborhood, but for those who choose to live anywhere in the Quad City area here, they should choose to live here. It should be an easy choice to live here. So I hear people and they are concerned about the assessments, and they're concerned about this project or that project. I'm concerned about how all of these things fit together for a long-term vision. I will probably never make a decision about an assessment based on, well, we don't need the money this year. It will be, how does this fit our long-term vision of what amenities need to be improved upon, or what amenities need to be built upon. One part of leadership is listening, and Dave's been a great influence on me to be out at the lake, be out at the parks, and just meet all the new people. Most of us have a circle of friends that are a lot like us, and so we hear a lot of people, but they're all saying the same things that we believe because they're in our circle of friends. Standing out by the post office is always eye-opening because I get a lot of folks that come up that I've never met before, and they give me a different vision. And so I thank all of you for being here. 4,000 lots. This is a great turnout, but I'd like to see it double, triple, or go tenfold. So you guys are a great start. Next time, bring a friend. Thanks very much.
as growing up here as a kid, I remembered how great this place was, and when my parents moved out of here, I always said one day that it would be great to move my family back into this place. A year and a half ago, wife and I bought Pizza Factory in Elk Valley, and we needed to get closer. We lived way out in Phelan. She said, well, where are we gonna go? I said, there's only one place I'm going, and that's Spring Valley Lake. It is the elite place to live, in my eyes, to raise my family, to grow with my grandkid my daughter just had our first grandchild 2 months ago, and they just bought their first house in Spring Valley Lake. So my family's here. We're as growing up here, I wanted to stay here, and now we're back. I'm very involved in our community, as you know, with our Little League through my business. That was our biggest thing, to be part of our community and work with as many places as we can. I'm an avid golfer. I've been a member of the country club. I'm an avid fisherman. I have a boat on the water. There's so many aspects, if we get this club, if it makes sense, to help not just with our property values, but help with the lake. Lost train of thought. But working with everybody, you work with these committees. I will, if I get elected to the board, I'm one voice, I'm one big voice that I can come to the table for these committees that put their heart and soul into what they believe in this community. And I believe that I can help out, and I don't plan on going anywhere for a long time. So this is where I plan on staying probably for the rest of our lives. So thank you.
Good morning again. I thought I'd give you just a little bit of history about who I am, because a lot of you may not know me. I moved here in 1986 originally and had a custom home built by Gavigan on, can't even remember the name of the street now, but it was right around the other side of the park here. And then in 1995, my wife and I got married on the dock. And when we decided we needed to get closer to our business and move back, I told my wife, where do you want to go? And she said, there's only one place to go. If I'm coming to the desert, it's Spring Valley Lake. And this community means an awful lot to us because it offers so much for the people that live here. We've been going to the pool to exercise before COVID hit, and it was interesting. There's only like 3 or 4 people that are ever in the pool, and I'm going, gosh, there needs to be more people getting involved in this community because there's so much that it has to offer. I spent 25 years as a respiratory therapist and a physician assistant. I was a board member of the High Desert Domestic Violence in 2002 and 2003. I'm currently the co-owner and COO of Small Beginnings, which is an international medical device company that manufactures products for premature babies in the hospital. My hobby is writing novels and children's books, and I have a strong desire to make sure that Spring Valley Lake remains the diamond in the desert. The other reason I'm running is to ensure that we have fiscal responsibility and that we're not just haphazardly using our funds, but that we're being careful with the funds that are provided by the community. And I look forward to learning more about all of you. Thank you.
All righty. Test 1, 2. Oh, here I go. So we're on 7. Number 7 in the agenda item. It's going to be a presentation of the written questions submitted. And I'm going to be reading some of those questions right now. Let's see if this microphone's a little better. So this one's from a resident on Rocky from 17890 Garden Glen. and asked for me to read the following questions. The first question, I'll just read one at a time. I'll try to get to 1 to 2, and I'll manage the time based on that. So the first question is, do you live on the golf course, and do you support moving forward with the purchase of the country club? I'll start from this side.
I don't live on the golf course, I actually live on the lake. And I'm not sure, I need to get more information before I can give a valid answer as to whether it's going to be financially in our best interest.
I do not live on a golf course, but I am a member of the golf course, and I do, if the numbers make sense, absolutely, we definitely need to have this golf course in our association.
I also do not live on the golf course. I to golf is kind of what Lewis said about swimming. You know, I can't golf, I don't golf, but I believe that a healthy, vibrant golf course is important to all of us in the community. As you mentioned about supporting the lake remaining healthy and vibrant. I will be the first one to say the community will make the decision to buy the golf course. As a board member, I will make the decision to communicate to the community every way I can so that they make the right decision, including how the golf course, not just being afraid of a turning ground, but how it fits into that long-term vision of being the best place to live anywhere near us.
I'm going to have an odd answer to that one. Yes, I live on the golf course. No, I don't live on the golf course. And the reason for that is I live across the pond from the first hole, but I can't walk out my backyard and walk onto the golf course. So I think technically it's an if question.
I do not live on the golf course. I absolutely support the golf course remaining a golf course, a country club. As far as whether I support the purchase of it, again, that it definitely goes back to what the actual numbers are, what the deal is. You know, we can't support it at all cost, but we'll wait and see what the proposal is.
I live on the bluff overlooking the golf course, so I can walk down a treacherous hill and be on the golf course, but so technically I do live on the golf course. I am in favor of pursuing the purchase of the golf course. I feel it would be a wonderful amenity to add to our list of wonderful amenities that we already have. And I also feel that it will add to our property values. Even if you don't live on the golf course, somebody said earlier, when you drive in here, what's the first thing that you see when you drive down the parkway? Is this beautiful expanse of greenery. And so for that reason, I'm in favor of making that available to everybody in the community. But it does have to be a purchase that makes sense. It can't be just, oh, we're just going to buy the golf course. It has to make sense for all of the property owners. Thank you.
All right, I'm multitasking, but we're getting along. We're going. For those of you who live on the golf course, whenever I'm out there, just turn your head. I'm practicing, and it's not looking really good out there. So, thought I saw you looking out your, but maybe not. But it was bad that day. Okay, so the next question we have from the same resident is, what specific task or goal for our community made you decide to run for office? So the question is what specific task or goal for our community made you decide to run for office? We'll start with Mr.
Okay, so what specific task or goal? I'm a person that doesn't have any preconceived pet projects that I'm trying to push through. My goal was to help this community that I love and get involved, and I have time because I am retired now, and I wanted to give back to the community that gave myself and my family so much in the past. So that's my motivation, make this place the best place in the valley to live.
So a specific task or goal, for me, it's the continuation and building upon the wonderful things that are here already. And that's, I understand, not very specific, but I think specifically that can be achieved by having a plan that we move forward with. You know, I'd like to see the lake improved. I'd like to see the golf course stay the golf course. I'd like to see Meadowlark Park get finished in a way that provides the most amount of value for everybody in our community, you know, with all the different things. But I just think having that plan moving forward is the task that needs to be done.
I think my decision was influenced by the purchase of the water rights several years ago and how much that was a community-wide concern because of the expense of it. I wanted to continue my volunteer work, and I was pretty much almost done with the other work that I've done in the past, and I felt that I could contribute to the decisions that the board was making in an objective manner, because my only agenda, if you want to call it that, is to try to be just and fair for the decisions that we make that are going to impact everybody. So that was the primary goal, and I continue with that same goal, and I want to continue the momentum that we have for getting closer and making more transparency and having a positive influence on our community.
For about the last 12 years since I began preparing to retire from the Army, I've had my own personal vision statement posted on my LinkedIn account and on all my resumes, and it's always been cast a compelling vision and invite others to join you on the journey. And that became to me what leadership means. I have a bit of a concern that a lot of people are talking about, what's this going to cost, or are you going to raise our assessments? And that should only be secondary to living out our vision. So the one thing that compels me to volunteer for the board and to ask for your support on the board is to be a cheerleader and a champion for the vision of this community of remaining and always being the best place to live. And that has to be what we decide. How much will that cost? It's how much will it cost to be the best, not just are you going to raise my dues, as if the dues are the vision. And I believe that that's going to require a lot of communication, and I would like to be a part of that communication plan.
Yeah, as Brett said, the vision to grow this place and keep it elite of the desert is why I'm here. There's three big things: finishing the park up with what vision that they have now with the Little League fields is big for me. Also, the golf course is primary, and then the lake, the clarity of that lake is huge. When I was growing up as a kid here, you could see 10 feet down in that thing, no problem. And when I moved back, we see what the lake is now. And if we can acquire the course, we can start treating that water earlier before it gets into the lake, so it can help with that clarity. So those projects are very, very big for me to get through and work with those committees that are passionate about what we have in this community.
Well, it looks like they've covered everything. My reason for getting involved is because I live here, and I want to be a voice for the majority of the people and the decisions that we make as a unit for the betterment of our community. I think it's very, very important that as many voices that can be heard are heard, so that the decisions are going to be something that we can all live with. The vision for this place is fantastic. The things that I've heard already about the clarification of the lake and the possible purchase of the golf course are dynamic. What does it mean though? What does it mean for us in the long term? And those are things that I don't have answers for yet, but hopefully if I'm a member of your board, I'll be able to help pass along those messages on what that vision is.
Thank you for answering that question. I am going to transition to the other resident just to save time, and we're going to go on a 15-second commercial break. All righty, we're going to move forward with the second set of questions. This one is from Mary Sapp, 18,000 block of Sagehand. First question is, I currently serve on the SBLA Finance Committee. In February 2020, the board adopted 2 Finance Committee document guidelines, the role of the Finance Committee in the annual budget review process. In your opinion, what value, if any, does this committee add? I'll read the question one more time, just in case you guys want to hear it again. Currently on the SBLA, I'm sorry, I have a mark right there. It says, I currently serve on the SBLA Finance Committee. In February 2020, the board adopted 2 Finance Committee document guidelines, the role of the Finance Committee and the annual budget review process. In your opinion, what value, if any, does this committee add? We'll start inside of Phil.
It appears to me that if you're going to have financials, a committee for financials, that we need to understand exactly what the purpose of it is. And I believe that having these things in place can only ensure that we're doing the best with the money that we have.
Yeah, as having a committee, instead of having one person can always overlook something small that we may not catch. So if we have a committee, especially in financial, they'll have a better outlook, and they can all come together and give an opinion if somebody did miss something. So it's always a great asset to have the committee.
So I believe the question was, what value, if any, does having that committee add to the association? And I'll echo what's been said. A committee, in a perfect world, brings a broad set of our residents from varied backgrounds and with varied interests, and that can only bring a wider perspective, as well as the overview and oversight, which is so important in a small association with a small staff that works very hard doing a lot of things. And so that committee being able to take a look at what our accountants provide for us, taking a look at our audits and bringing back their recommendations as maybe a balance and maybe as a different perspective to the staff recommendations, are a tremendous benefit for the board of directors.
And before you go, Louis, one of the comments that I had that probably happened 5 minutes ago, they asked that if you guys could speak up a little bit louder. This is Facebook Live, is what they've asked. Is, it looks like most can hear you, but one has asked if we can speak up just a little bit.
Okay, I think I first need to start with the purpose of any of the committees, whether it's finance or not, is to serve and support the board and are given direction. Essentially, they're the representatives out there because the board can't be everywhere, nor do we want to be everywhere. With that said, I have to say that the Finance Committee is very important, especially for budget review. Having the budget review, meaning the budget that is going to be coming up, and that's for the next following financial year, using the previous information as well is very important to have it in place so that the board can address any issues that are coming up or may arise. I think that part of the demeanor of the people who are on the board or on the finance committee is not so much committee as the qualifications. they have to be well-versed in finances, and the board does depend upon them to review the finances and make sure that everything's copacetic. In the same vein, there are questions and directions that the board has to provide so that the finance committee can focus on what the board is needing and the financial reviews that are necessary to help guide the board in making appropriate decisions for the future.
I would believe that the Finance Committee is extremely important as well. Providing expertise, providing information, providing these alternative perspectives, absolutely. And once you have your vision, the next thing you probably need to talk about is the finances. What is it going to cost to move forward with this vision? So understanding the finances, having those different perspectives, understanding what's available and what things will cost and what the benefits will be in the end is extremely important. So the Finance Committee would certainly be important in that role.
Thank you, Mary, for your question. The Finance Committee is, as Louis said, an arm of the board. The Finance Committee is made up of several really smart people that really know what to look for. They know how to read a line item budget. They know how to go back in previous years and do comparisons. They're a very hard-working group. I had a chance to work with them my first year on the board. I was treasurer, and I was so impressed with their diligence and their wanting to be organized and their wanting to have timelines set out. And but their role is to help the board, and believe me, they have helped us in many ways. One thing that I really appreciate about the Finance Committee is how they will meet with the board and explain things that they have seen or found or looked at, or give us an alternate way of looking at what these spreadsheets are saying. And so I really appreciate that meeting that the committee has with the board. This takes place before the budget is approved, and it's very important for us because you guys are really experts, and not all of us are that schooled in finding the little details. So, a very important group. Thank you.
Alrighty, so I'm gonna read the second question, and then after I read the second question, we are gonna open it up for our community. And then if we have any more time after that, I will read the additional questions that were sent in. In preparation for running for the board, have you familiarized yourself with the recent audit, financial statements, and policies and procedures of the association? And if so, what have you learned from them? I'll repeat the question. In preparation for running for the board, have you familiarized yourself with the recent audits, financial statements, and policies and procedures of the association? If so, what have you learned from them? I believe last time I started with Phil, so we're gonna put it down to Joanne.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that we do as a board every month, we review a huge packet of information that has a lot of different topics. It has the financial statements, it has the audit, it has all of the different, public safety citations and other kinds of things that are going on in the neighborhood that we have to review, purchases that we might be looking into making, and just so many things. I spend so much time reading that board packet. I oftentimes read it 2 or 3 times just to make sure I haven't missed anything. There's a lot there. It takes hours. So yes, I prepare. I like to pride myself on being prepared, and so yes, I do read all of that. and familiarize myself with all of that. And as far as what have I learned, I have learned that there's so much that goes into making this community run so that people don't even realize that there's anything going on. The whole group of people that work for Spring Valley Lake Association, all of the volunteers, the committees, it's amazing how much goes on. And with the $5 million plus budget, we really have to be cautious of how that money is spent and how it will help our community. So preparation is key. Thank you.
I have not, as of yet, carved out the time to go through previous budgets. As far as making the time to do so, and when I will, I would like to see that there's some forward-looking numbers in there, that we're looking towards the future. I'd like to see some strong reserves, and so that's what I would be looking for when I do go through them.
Kind of mimicking what Joanne said about the finances, that's part of our responsibility as a board member is to review the finances and the financial statements. We have received a lot of useful information from the Finance Committee. And as far as the policies and procedures, there are checks and balances that over the years were lacking for the HOA that have been brought in and started and further refined, just to make sure that controls of finances or the money that's out there in the banks and whatnot are being properly spent and tracked. And for that, we do owe a debt of gratitude to our Finance Committee for pointing out things that upon further research that has brought to our attention, what we're doing, how well we're doing. If the auditing company is doing their job, is it necessary to change auditing companies or accountants? So all that information that they provide is of value and is not being ignored. It may seem as if it's being ignored, but it is not. It's definitely of value, and we do tip our hats to the Finance Committee for I'm sure there's hours and hours of research that they've gone into it, because it's not something that's simple to look at. If anybody here has ever tried to learn the first time how to balance their checkbook, take that and multiply it times about 1,000. And that's what you might be getting close to what they've done. So, thank you.
In answer to the question, yes, I've studied this year's budget, the last 10 years' budgets before that, the reserve study from several years ago, so I could compare where its predictions were to where we are now. And what I've learned from it is that, and Al, this comes pretty close to when you came aboard, at least after you'd been aboard for a little while, and the boards before anybody sitting up here, our reserves were plummeting kind of low, and their prediction was to get very low, with less than $1 million in reserve several years, which would have been in the 10 to 20% range, which is very, very dangerous for an association where one unexpected building having a HVAC leak and you wouldn't be able to afford it and you had to go out and do a special assessment. So right now we're over 50% in our reserve fund, which is medium risk. It's still not without risk, but it's medium risk, and building that back has been the tremendous work of the last several boards. Well, not several, the last few boards for about the last 6 years. So the other thing that I've learned, and I didn't learn it from reviewing all of this, when I was in Afghanistan, we had a 10-year, $1 billion plan to rebuild their army from zero right after we overthrew the Taliban to being able to maintain their own defense. And sometimes there are cost savings. Russia donated some Jeeps, and that was like, oh great, we don't have to buy Jeeps now. Well, we didn't have any Russian tires, we didn't have any Russian oil filters, we didn't have any Russian air filters, and not a single person in Afghanistan could read Russian to know how to change any of those things. And so that's why I reviewed 10 years, not this year's, but 10 years, to see where we've been on the glide path, to see if there are any risks or any opportunities, and always to be on the lookout for shiny objects that look like great savings, but could bring more heartaches. Another lesson for that, for those of you that have lived here, Maverick Stadium. Remember how beautiful that was? Well, they went with no money to maintain Maverick Stadium until it's still there, but it is not the jewel that it was when we all first maybe went to our first Mavericks game. So all of our amenities require that type of reserve funding to maintain them and to make them even better.
To answer the first question, I have not looked into the budget per se, but if I'm getting on the board, I will definitely be in there. I have dipped into the policies around, and what I have learned is looking at some of these policies, they are kind of outdated. I would like to revisit some of these policies and get them up to maybe some of these standards of today that have been written a long time ago that we can look at. And thank you.
I also have not had an opportunity to go through all of the policy and procedures. However, I did learn that the budget for Spring Valley Lake is huge, and that the population is like a small city. And so it requires a tremendous amount of input from the community to be able to make things work properly. And I hope to delve deeper into the policies and procedures and be able to make the appropriate decisions on reviewing them.
Thank you guys. On a time check and a restart of our video. Give me a second. Alright. So what we're going to do is, in managing the time, I'm going to move to our next agenda item, and that's oral questions from our community members. I'm going to read the requirements of an oral question, and what I will do is, if you're not physically able to come up here, I will bring the mic to you. But if you can come up here, I'd appreciate you coming up here so our community can see who's coming up here, and I'll explain what you guys need to do. Alrighty. So oral questions must be a question, not a political statement. The person posing the question must give their name, address, and will be limited to 1 minute to ask the question. The candidates will be limited to 2 minutes each to answer. Speaker must observe rules of decorum and not engage in obscene gestures, shouting, profanity, or other disruptive behavior. If a speaker is in the middle of a sentence when the time is called, he or she may finish their statement. The time guidelines ensures that others will have an opportunity to speak. Speakers may not allot their time to others. All persons must follow the standing rules. And so we will open it up to who has any questions, or who has a question. We'll do one question at a time. So just one question, and give the board an opportunity to reply to that. Come on up.
Thank you. My name's Jahal Cass. I live on Stone Ridge Drive. The address, I get my mail at the post office, 13485, I think. My question is this. How many members of the candidates have, I know you have, served on a committee of the association, and which one, if so, and what was the one memorable learning experience that you had from that activity? Thank you.
All right. That last session went so long, I forgot who I picked on first. So,
I guess I'm first.
oh, he's first. All right. Thank you for stepping up.
The only committee that I've been on was the High Desert Domestic Violence Organization in the High Desert. And as a board member of that organization, we found out that there was inappropriate use of board members that were taking advantage of the funds that were available to the committee and to the organization, and we were able to terminate that and to ensure a non-involvement of the committee members in the ongoing practice of the the High Desert Domestic Violence Organization, without getting too specific. It was a challenge, and it was very worthwhile to be able to help that organization. But I've not been a part of an association before.
Yeah, this will be my first time in the association. I'm brand new here, so I have not been on any of our committees. I don't know if that's what you're referencing, if it was just in our area or if it was just abroad in my lifetime committees, but I've only been here a year, so I've not been on any committees yet in our association. I have been on committees before in my previous work. As far as committees go, like I said before, you get way more ideas with a committee versus just one person. So I think I'm answering your question, I'm not sure.
I was sat as a board member here on Spring Valley Lake for about 6 months before my job changed and I was forced to step down. During that time, I was able to visit committees and sit in as a board liaison, but I've never served on one of the committees. What I was able to learn from hearing the committee reports and from visiting I visited the Budget Committee once, the Lake Committee once, and the Citation Committee once, is that it is amazing that we're able to obtain such high quality people to serve on committees, although it's a constant battle because it's hard work. It's often thankless, and it's really takes a lot of time for nothing other than giving back to the committee, or the community. So what I learned more than anything else is it does require a constant communication to the entire association, all of our residents, that their service is appreciated and desired.
I was the board liaison to the Citation Review Committee, which was kind of an interesting position to be in simply because as a liaison to any committee, if you're a board member, you don't get a vote. You actually just are there as a presence representing the board and being able to report back to the board. So it was very educational in terms of all the activities that go on that are against the rules of the board or of the homeowner association. But it was also enlightening because not just on this committee, but committee members spend a lot of their own personal time on it. And I have to be very thankful to Mary and Dennis and Bill for the time that they have invested in the committees that are out there, and I encourage people to get more involved and be more representative. As I told my son once when he wasn't happy with the results of an election, did you vote? He said no. I said, then you don't have a voice to complain about. You need to get involved, you need to be represented, and by doing so you get the benefit of it, whether you agree with it or not, but at least you're up on what's happening on those committees.
I have not had the opportunity to serve on a committee yet. I have attended committee meetings, most recently Lake Committee, the Meadowlark Park Committee meetings, and I'll echo the sentiments to the amazing work that is done by the community members on those committees. A lot of work and a lot of time, and it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Cass, for your good question. I've been on the Finance Committee, liaison to the Finance Committee, liaison to the Community Task Force. Some of you might not remember that one. That was in 2019 when we were just starting to take a look at the feasibility of purchasing or not purchasing, or what should we do about the golf course and country club. So I served on that committee. And that one came up with the recommendations that we are now working off of. Also, I've been the liaison to the Community Planning Committee, which I still am. And I've sat in on the Lake Committee and the Equestrian Committee. And I do, like some of the other candidates here, I just have to say the volunteers in this community are unbelievable, the time that they give. And it's it makes this community go round and round. It's what keeps us, what keeps everything going, actually. So, thank you.
All right, do we have another resident that would like to come up and, all righty.
Hi, y'all. Graham Carr, 13251 Country Club Drive. First of all, I want to applaud you all for committing your efforts and your time to this project. I know it's going to be a lot of hard work. I was running last year myself. Excuse me. Probably ignorant of all the work it was going to take. But anyhow, I applaud you. My question is, recently the CSD was rejected, and I'd like to hear your opinions, whether you were for it or against it, and briefly why. Thank you.
Joanne.
Okay, the CSD, that was the Community Service District project. I was, back when it first got mentioned back in 2018, I was sitting in the coffee break meeting in this very room, and I was listening and I thought, what are they talking about? And so I put myself in a position of going to attend some of the meetings just to see, because when I don't understand something or know what's going on with something, I don't like that. I want to find out. So I did put myself in the midst of that committee and was quite involved with it. The committee, the CSD was not a component of the Spring Valley Lake Association. The board did not take a stand, either positive or negative on it. So it really is, at this point, it might be an issue in the future, but at this point, it's sort of in the past. And all I can say is I was very interested in it. I thought it had made a lot of good points. At first, I was just a listener, and then the more I read and the more in depth I read, I did feel that we had the capacity and the manpower in this community to take something like that on, but it's an issue for the future, which it could come up again. I do want to say that there were a lot of points that were made for on the CSD that we could save a lot of money, and but like I said, it's in the past, and so here we go. We're probably getting an increase. I don't know if anybody listened to the board meeting last month, but Steve Samaras told us that there would be a possible rate increase, water and sewer, and so that's looming on the horizon. But really, we as a board do not have any say-so in any of that. Thank you.
My general understanding of the CSD versus CSA was that the CSD promised to bring more local control. As far as supporting it, I didn't quite understand who would be involved in that local control, how that board would be determined. And we had the CSA since I've lived here, basically, and was kind of just along the lines of kind of the "it wasn't broke, we don't need to fix it" scenario, in my opinion. And I think that's where I am on it.
Kind of feeding off of what David said, as far as if it's not broke, don't fix it. My concern with any new endeavor is maintaining the infrastructure. So starting it from scratch and keeping continuity of services and keeping continuity of the people that are involved in running it is always a challenge. And as Joanne said, it doesn't mean this issue can't arise again, But again, my concern was that by essentially getting rid of one and replacing with another one with no track record, there would be challenges there, a lack of experience that could impose an issue with it. But I just felt that continuing what we have that was working in place, didn't have any issues that were a major concern. Therefore, I didn't want to have it replaced. I think that some of the issues that were brought up and as a rationale for changing it were valid, but as Joanne said, I think that maybe its time wasn't coming at that moment, and that is an issue that needs to be addressed in the future.
Like was said, and actually this did come up while I was on the board. It was in its infancy planning stages, and I know Rory Shannon personally, and I know he far from did it by himself, but I know he and his committee put in tremendous work with researching it with a tremendous heart for what was best for our community. It was voted down, and my own personal opinion, I think that'd be like saying whether I was a Dodger fan or an Angel fan. I'll make half the people mad, half the people happy, and it doesn't matter anyway because we don't get to vote on it on the association.
Yeah, when that issue came up, I was brand new to this community, so in my opinion, it was really hard for me to get all the information for my family to figure out if we were what we were gonna vote on, just being so new here in this community.
Yeah, I'm in the same situation. It was so new, I'm not even aware of what it was. So I just got back into the community, so I'm not familiar with it.
Alrighty, thank you guys. So we're going to start wrapping it up. So we're going to take anyone who feels that they have we're going to take 1 or 2 more questions. And if you feel your question is very important and the community needs to hear, please step up. Or if you need me to come to you, I can do that. Give me a 5 seconds.
Dennis Verhagen, 13970 Spring Valley Parkway. My question has more to do with not the incumbents, but the 4 new people that are running. Have you received a draft copy of the consultant's report for the golf course? And if not, why not? The other part of that question is, if I told you in there that the consultants say it's a high-risk issue, would you believe it? Thank you.
I'll be the first to answer, and no, I have not received that information at all. And I would not be surprised to find out that it's a high risk.
No, as far as I know, we're not allowed to have that yet. So, is what I've been told. If it's a high risk, see what the community says, get the correct information out there.
I have not seen the new one. Obviously, there's one, the first one is posted on the website, so if all of us haven't gone out to go see that original one that started the ball rolling, I'd encourage all of you to. But I'd be surprised if it did not say it was high risk. It's a high risk to do it. It's a high risk not to do it. If it did not say it was a high risk, I wouldn't put very much stock into how well of a job they did researching it.
And I have seen the report that's on the website. Again, clearly it's going to be risky either way. Waiting for the final report and the final purchase agreement to see what the numbers are.
Barbara Hampton, 12720 Spring Valley Parkway. We've heard a lot about the feasibility prospects of purchasing the golf club, the country club. What if we don't? What are the feasible outcome of not buying it? That's all.
That's another great question, Barbara. I think the feasibility of not purchasing it is that it is on the list to, be dispensed with by the current owners. And so it will get sold, or somebody else is going to take over no matter what, eventually. I like to keep, this is right in the middle of our community. It's, the community, actually, if you look at the map, you see the lake and the golf course, and the rest of the community just surrounds it. And I would like to think that if we keep the control of the golf course and country club, we can control the rules, the prices, we can control the quality of the amenity. We can also control what's done with it. I mean, another owner could come in and decide to convert something into something that people might not like. Another owner could come in and have a situation where they quit watering the golf course, and then it might turn brown. You've probably heard tales of other golf courses across the country that have been purchased by people who really don't have they purchase this wonderful golf course, but they really don't have the buy-in and the personal ownership of it. And so eventually when things go bad, they let it go brown, and then you've got property values sinking, and it just becomes an ugly eyesore. So that's pretty much what could happen if we don't get the chance to make it an amenity of Spring Valley Lake.
Yeah, I think I think it's a fact that the golf course will be sold, which also means somebody will buy it. If it is not the Spring Valley Lake Association, then it's somebody else. And once it's somebody else, then it's kind of unlimited unknowns at that point. And I have no, idea of who would purchase it, what purpose they may purchase it for. And yes, there's plenty of horror stories, if you will, of it turning brown or even worse. But I don't know that that's a fact, because it would just all depend on who purchased it and what their purpose was.
Well, I think first and foremost, you need to understand the relationship between the golf course and the lake. We get our water from the golf course. The golf course gets its water from the fish hatchery. So therefore, the golf course controls the water rights for the water that comes in our way. So it's something that will have a direct impact. The other part of that equation is that by having control of the golf course and country club, we also get to control the quality of that water that's moving into our lake, and therefore determining the ecology of the lake. So one of the primary focuses, or one of the goals of that, if we complete the purchase, is to reestablish, because of its impact, the water that we get from there, reestablish the life of the lake. And unless we do that, we still have to deal with putting chemicals in our lake, or somehow or another managing the water that comes to the lake. So they kind of go hand in hand. And of course, as they've mentioned, if somebody other than us buys it, what we don't have is control over how long, if they maintain it properly, if they manage it properly, if it will survive. If it ends up turning brown, or if it ends up being people who are buying it just as an investment and aren't running it for the sake of the community or for the betterment of the community, then it is going to have a financial impact on all of us. Just if the lake went dry and suddenly there was no water in there anymore, it would impact all of our properties. Kind of the same thing is happening with the country club, where if it were to go brown and then they decided to just let it go because they couldn't financially keep it going, then we would all feel that impact, whether we live on the golf course or not. Thank you.
That is a great question, because mostly I think all we hear is if we don't buy it, bad stuff happens. And I gotta tell you, golf courses are scary stuff. I was very involved in Hesperia. That Hesperia golf course is always a stumbling block, how much money it costs, how much it takes the city to give the Parks District to run it. You saw the newspaper, Green Tree Golf Course, big fight in Victorville about whether to keep on paying because it takes more money than it brings in. Even Apple Valley Golf Course, which was probably not too long ago our only rival in terms of the quality of a place to golf, and it's having its struggles. One of the biggest things that bothers me is not the golf course, even though that's hard. Professional golf organizations that do nothing but run golf courses find it hard to make a dollar, is the buildings. It's almost like buying Maverick Stadium. You know, the buildings are old. They need work. The kitchen is old. The amenities are old. So we're buying something that immediately needs renovations if we were to buy it. So what you said, though, is what are the feasibility of not buying it? What I can tell you is I do need to see the real hard numbers, but 27 years in the Army, all we did with planning was what we called branches and sequels, which is what you're going to. We don't just assume we're going to buy it, and so now what? We don't assume we're not going to buy it. So the branches are wherever you have to make a decision, and then the sequels come out, like the smaller branches. If we buy it, then we can do this, or then we can do that, and then we can do that, and you wait for the opportunities to take that decision. You don't just make this decision and then wait till you get to the next branch or sequel. Same thing, the people have to vote, and they could vote no, and we need to have a strong plan on what can we do if the people vote no.
So, well, that's fine, if we can, if the numbers are correct and we get everything lined up and the feasibility of buying that club, it just means so much to our community. Look at Apollo. Apollo owns Club Corp. Apollo just now bought the Sands Corporation, which owns Venetian, for $6.8 billion, I believe. Our $1 million golf course to them is nothing. It makes enough to sustain itself, but for us, it is huge in our community, for our property values, for our lake, for everything in here to keep this place beautiful. If we buy it, I took a tour of the kitchen the other day with Darnell, and he was explaining to me what Club Corp gives them, what Club Corp does not. Like Brad's saying, we're gonna have to invest a little bit of money into the place to make it what we need, what it should be. When I grew up here as a kid, that place was beautiful. Right now, it's not, in my eyes. The carpet needs new carpet, needs paint, it needs a facelift. If we have it, we can do that, because Club Corp's not giving them anything. He has a stove in there that's like 8 burners, 2 of them work, and they say, well, work with those 2. That's all. We're not buying you a new one. You got 2 that work with it. That's not feasible. That's not going to make the club money. What other people have to understand too is that club, we can still do banquets. We can still do quinceañeras. We can do weddings. It's gonna make money. But if somebody goes in there and looks at it right now, I'm not gonna have a wedding there because of the way it looks. If we're able to take it over and we have a budget that we can spruce it up a little bit, people will come back here. That place did weddings and banquet every weekend, making money, $10,000, $15,000 a day on that stuff. So feasibility, I think that club can be way up here where it used to be if we can get it.
I agree. I think the feasibility of not doing it is going to end up hurting us in the long run. I wasn't aware that it was going to be sold one way or the other, but now that I've got that information, I would much rather have control over it. And I think the potential for revenue is huge. I know our company had our Christmas party before COVID. We had our Christmas party here, and our staff said it was the best Christmas party they'd ever had, and that the food was magnificent. If they're only working with 2 burners, imagine what they could do with 6. So I'm kind of like leaning in that direction, and I have to go potty.
Okay, so one of the residents I just talked to, we're going to try to give you guys two more questions, and we're gonna try to get through them as quick as possible. I know you guys have been here for over an hour and a half. Some of you guys have come really early, so really appreciate that. One of the concerns that we have from one of our residents behind us is the concern about purchasing the country club. What the concern is some of our residents here are on a fixed income. And the concern right now is the unknown. And so the residents that are on a fixed income, they have a fear, probably because of social media too, that says, hey, what if my fees double? And I think that's the biggest fear out here. And so the resident was basically explaining, number one, the importance of getting that information to the community. And number two, the fear of people, just like that resident, with a limited income. So if you guys can kind of just touch on that concern with the limited information, we obviously don't know that most of you guys have limited information. Touch on that with less than a minute, and then we're going to move forward to a question from Mary, and then roll into our closing statements. Thank you. And who's raising their hand? No one answers me.
Okay, with the limited income, that is a big concern, and there are so many ways to generate an income from that golf course. I'm sorry, your first name? CJ. CJ mentioned already the ability to utilize the facilities for weddings, for quinceañeras. There's so much revenue that can be generated from that kind of those kind of services, as well as opening up the golf course to the public could also generate a tremendous amount of income. Non-members would have to pay more than members, but it would be something that I think a lot of the people in the community might be able to get involved with. There's a lot of possibilities. You just have to have the right manager and the right frame of mind, and controlling your costs as you're going forward. But I think it's a very big potential for the community. Our community, like was mentioned by Alfred, our population is like a small city. A small city can support a golf course and get great utilization from it. Like I said, I had our Christmas party there. We can offer it, they can make it event planning way in advance, and even memberships to the pool and the gym, that's also a possibility. A lot of people aren't going back to 24-hour fitness because there's such a cloud over them. So there's potential, tremendous amount of potential. Can't be afraid to move forward.
And just for the rest of you guys that are going to answer questions, does anybody want me to clarify the question that the resident have, or do you guys pretty much understand? All right.
To answer the question on our residents of fixed income, that's a hard one. The problem is if we don't raise those dues to acquire the asset in here, we don't know what's going to happen. As far as what I've been told, it's going to be minimal. It's not going to be a lot. It's not going to be a ran like Silver Lakes at $200 a month. It's going to be way less than that. Like I said, I don't have facts, I don't have numbers, but on the fixed income, it's for those of you that are out there, I believe it's going to be a lot lower than what you're thinking.
% of our community would be 200 homes. And if we, as a board, recommend something to the community that would be crushing to 200 of our residents, then I don't believe that we as a board had done our homework and served you as board members ought. And so whatever the recommendation is, I won't say that out of 4,000 households there won't be 5 people or 3 people or 1 person who just has no way of coming out of pocket for even $20 more a month. So I don't think we can hold our community back because maybe 1 person or 5 people or 10 people are at the very edge of being able to live here. But I also don't think that it's, as you said, as we would allow it to be a large issue that would affect a large number. I can't promise there won't be 1 person who's right on the edge of their income and the slightest increase would make them look at selling. And I'd be sad about that, but I don't think we can hold back for a very, very tiny number.
I wish I could share numbers with you right now. I think it would ease a lot of minds. I can absolutely guarantee you the fees are not going to double. That's just wouldn't even be on the horizon for any of us on the board, and I doubt if anybody who replaced me or anybody else would consider that as something viable. It is something that we constantly keep in mind. We're constantly running the numbers, taking whatever number is being thrown out there and multiplying it times 4,215, dividing it by the number of months, multiplying it. We're constantly doing that, so we're very much aware. It also goes with this. If we told you right here today that your fees are going to go up $200 a month, I absolutely guarantee you this whole project would not move forward. Okay, that's something we have to take into consideration. It has to be something where people look at it and go, okay, for what I'm getting, that's reasonable. And I can pretty much safely say that the value of your home will probably definitely increase by much more than whatever the assessments we would generate or add on per year.
The fear is real for sure. Fee increases, whether you're on a fixed income or not, are not something generally that people want to hear about. So what's the offset? What's the reason for that increase, if there is an increase at all? Until we see the actual agreement and what the difference would be, I don't know if there'll be increase or not, but I would also remind you that our community is the one that's going to get to decide whether we do this or not. So if those fees are out there, it's still going to be a vote of the community as to whether we move forward with it or not. So.
I too, like Mr. Ponce said, I wish I could share numbers. I can tell you that your homeowner's fees will not be doubling. I can share that. We will be having a town hall meeting shortly. I believe we're scheduling it for the middle of April. At that time, we may have some better idea of what the fees will be, if any. I think I'm at liberty to say we will keep the fee increase as low as possible. That would be my goal as a board member, to purchase something to purchase an amenity as incredible as a golf course and country club and have that be part of our community. Yes, we may have to raise the fees a small amount, but I do not think they're going to double. And so no fear on that, please. Thank you.
All right, we have one final question from Mary, and we're going to ask that we get straight to it. Get, 1 minute or less, and then we're going to do our closing statements, and I will keep to that promise right there.
Hello, so my name is Mary Stapp, and I live at 18,000 Sturgeon Road. Can you hear? Oh.
For the Facebook people.
Okay. My name is Mary Stapp, and I live at 18,000 Sage Chen Road. And I just have one question. Initially, when we first got onto the Finance Committee, we made a recommendation back in back in 2019, August, September 2019, that we saw the need for a capital improvement plan, like even a 5-year capital improvement plan, something very basic. Still really haven't seen that yet. So I'm wondering if you could answer just probably 1 minute or less because of time. How do you strategically plan for projects and future projects? What is your idea? We have the parks, we have the lake, we have the beach, we have the equestrian side. There's all this consideration, and now we also have the golf course. So how would you, business plan, what kind of plan would you recommend? Thank you.
Okay, I think I'm first. Okay, thanks, Mary. I think that that's something that is very important to have a 5-year plan and beyond. I think we would enlist the support and the help from the Finance Committee We would also enlist the help from Mr. Logan, our manager, and the other folks in the office that are involved in the finance end of it. I think it's really important that we do that. It's just something that's going to take time, but it's something that should be on our priority list. I totally agree with you.
I would just say at the outset, a plan, a long-term plan is imperative, for sure. We need to know where we're going. We need to know what it's going to take to get there, and then have that mindset looking forward. As far as the specifics, I don't know yet, but I know the plan is needed.
I think one of the more important points of addressing your question is in providing more transparency. And part of the challenge is when you join the board or are elected to the board, you're taking on what the previous board and the previous board to that their history and the expectations the community at large has based on what they were told from the previous board and the board before that. So you take on all that, and honestly, you may not always be aware of what was promised, what was changed, what's happened with that. And part of, I know our goal as a board is to, and working with Al, is moving towards more transparency so that there's any given project that this is how much has been approved for that project, but if there are any changes along the way and any savings or any additional funds that have to go towards that we're being transparent about how to complete that project. I know this park here has gone through several renditions since the original one way back when it was first proposed to make these improvements on it, and the improvements that were ultimately made and have yet to be made have evolved over time. So to come up with a concrete plan for any one given project as a large improvement like that is a challenge. But I think that with transparency and making sure you understand where the changes and when the changes happen and what funds have been set aside for those, that by having that information, you'll be more aware of what the board is doing. But it also helps the board members or anybody running for the board understand what they're buying into when they step into this role. We get credit, we get blame. Al, I'm sure, gets credit and blame for way more than what we do. And it has just, you kind of have to move forward with where you started and move forward from there. As far as capital improvements, there is a plan there just simply because equipment, if you're talking about equipment has to be repaired or replaced. It has a lifespan that it has, and that's why we have reserves. Those move into replacing those things when necessary. The parts you may not be aware of is how well Nick and Al have been in cost savings when it comes to replacing those things. They don't just say, oh, well, we have $100,000 to spend on this, let's spend it. No, they're actually evaluating what that money has been, how much has been set aside, and how much they actually need. And so there's been cost savings all along the way that help keep us in a better financial situation. Now, would we like to have an actual master plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan out there? Yeah, that would be lovely, but because it's so malleable based on who the board members are and what the needs of the community are, it would be just that. It would be an idea of what is going forward, not necessarily in concrete, and then you say, hey, wait a minute, you said you were going to spend this on this, but we have this issue. So I think maybe in the future the board needs to be better with explaining why and when those changes happen.
That is a great question. I'm so glad you asked it. That's one of the things that I've been talking about, vision and long-term planning. This 2016 one, which was the one I used so that I could go back 5 years and then go forward 5 years, it actually has a 30-year outlay on everything that they guess is going to need to be bought, repaired, refurbished, etc., down to $5,000 to replace a flagpole at the Equestrian Center, to security car replacement for $32,936, but all of them in 1 year. And sometimes those things come before the board, and they sound reactive. And so because we guessed 5 years ago that the car would cost $32,000, but we didn't know what cars would cost 10 years when we were going to buy them, they try to stay under it, which maybe they buy a used car just to stay under that reserve price. I would love to work with the finance committee to ensure that we have a 5-year pre-planning, bouncing it off our reserve study, seeing where we can save. And we are only on 50%, so we can't buy everything on the existing plan. So we have to look for ways to save things. Thanks.
Yeah, we definitely need that long-term plan, like he explained, looking at the facts, working with the finance committee. I'm gonna keep it to about 30 seconds. But that is, as the board, we need to get those things in place, and we need to get these projects that are already approved and get them done. And just what I've noticed so far is some of this stuff has taken so long, and then finally they just make that motion and get like Little League fields. Here's your 40,000, get it done now. Well, we could have had that done, hopefully, it should have been done already.
Well, it looks like everything's been said. We definitely need committees for anything that's going to happen, and we need a long-term committee. In regards to the golf, the possibility of obtaining that whole thing is going to take a lot of input from the community so that we make the right decisions and do the right things. And that's going to take some time.
Alrighty, so we're going to move towards our closing statements. Closing statements are limited to 2 minutes. We like to stick with that. Even my camera says the battery's running low, so that tells me that we've been doing this for a little while. And so we will start with Bill, and give us your closing statement, and then we'll wrap this up. I have a few announcements at the end, and I'll keep it really quick, and we'll go from there.
Well, I'm really proud to be on the stage with all these people, and I would elect at least 3 of them myself. You guys are going to be the ones that make the decision. Think clearly and make the best choice for all of us. Thank you.
Moving into this community, as much as I want to be involved, I think this is the best place for me to show a voice, and I have a lot of great ideas for our community. As much as we're involved in our community with our restaurant and my family, this is amazing for me just to have a chance to sit here and be in front of you guys, and I hope you guys will, hopefully I answer the right questions and I get your vote. Thank you.
But to finish up, I want to thank all of you for your time coming out here and some really, really good questions. I was just listening in on a teletown hall with Jay Obernolte, and I was a little worried that it was all going to be a bunch of people calling to drill on, we hate Trump, or we love Trump, whatever. No, they were really good questions. And so walking in here, I had no idea what kind of questions would come up, and would they all be, my neighbor's dog pooped in my yard, how will you fix that as a board member? And I really don't want to try to fix that as a board member. Leadership is listening. And listening today really encouraged me that we have very thoughtful, involved community, and I would be happy to be your representative on the board. I believe that we need to work with our partners, and one of the things that I've done that I didn't do last time, and I've never seen anybody do, so maybe it was really stupid to do, but I was happy to do it. I reached out and received the endorsements of Jay Obernolte and Smitty Smith and Scott Wilk in the state senate, and Robert Lovingood, the former supervisor, Paul Cook, the current supervisor, and 6 of our previous mayors of our surrounding cities. I believe I'm in a unique position because of my past to invigorate our relationships with our county, with our surrounding cities. We don't get surprised like the Walmart, suddenly there's going to be a giant Walmart in our front porch. Well, it's not there, but guess what? It's owned by somebody and the city wants to make money off of it. So it'd be better to be a part of that solution than just wait to try to battle off the next challenge. And that's why I'm running for the board, and that's why I hope I can earn your vote. Thank you.
Well, I think that when we say running for the board, it really is kind of a marathon because things are coming in from all directions throughout the course, both good and bad, of the past 2 years. I would like to carry that torch forward. I have the base knowledge and experience of the last 2 years and don't have to get up and running for the next 2 years. And it takes a while to get things going. I hope to continue representing you in a fair and objective manner, and I hope I can also earn your vote. Thank you.
I would also like to thank everybody for coming out. I'd like to thank everybody who's watching on Facebook Live. And my passion for this community has moved me towards this board run, and it will keep me motivated to fill in gaps in my knowledge that need to be filled in. I'm a quick study, and I will get up to speed as quickly as possible. I appreciate your support, and this is our community, it's our association, and it's your choice. So I hope to be included as part of that choice. Thank you.
I have 5 main goals, and I think these are things that everybody is always talking about. Number 1, the lake. We have to keep the lake in pristine condition. We have to get it back. There's a lot of things that we are doing now that we need to continue, and that is super important because, after all, we are called Spring Valley Lake, and we want it to look like the name sounds. The second thing is continue the improvements to Meadowlark Park, of course. The third thing, keep all the amenities in the equestrian unit, the equestrian side and the lake side in pristine condition, and that goes along with code enforcement. We have to keep our property values high by keeping our properties and our homes looking just right. Continue to improve the communication and transparency to the community and move forth with the acquisition of the country club if that's at all feasible, and if we can gain consensus from our community, that would be my goal. Underpinned to everything has to be keeping property values high and keeping a financial responsibility to not just spend the money of the homeowners in a frivolous manner. So those are the 2 things that are underpinned to every decision that I make. Again, I would like to say I will be honored to receive your vote. I would like to serve, as Louis said, I would like to serve another 2 years so that I can see some things to completion and be involved. I don't have to, the learning curve, it's always a learning curve, but I don't have to go back to day 1 on all of the things that I've learned. Thank you so much for attending today, and have a great day, first day of spring.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're just getting right there, right before my camera turns off, so we're right on time. I really want to thank these individuals for showing up. I told them 1 hour, we're going on 2, and so I want to thank you guys for sticking in there. It takes a lot of courage to run on the board. Louis made a comment that I wanted to make, but I wasn't bold enough to do it, but it is. If you're not scared running on the board, something's wrong, because there's a lot that's involved in doing this. It's easy to sit and make comments online and do different things, but to step up and say, hey, I want to make a difference in my community is a big deal. So let's give them a round of applause for showing up. Really quick announcement that I'm going to, I have two things I want to cover. I want to thank Janine. Janine's always in the background helping me for things that I forget. Forget name tags. She shows up with name tags, things like that. And she's always there to help me out when we're doing these meetings. So I want to thank you, Janine, for all your help. I want to thank our board of directors that have showed up. It looks like we have our president and we have Rob. Is that Robert? You got the mask on. Okay, that's Robert. Can't see if anybody else has showed up, but thank all our committee members. We have different committee members that have showed up, and thank you guys for showing up and showing your support to the community. One last thing I want to cover is, said 2 things, I did 3 things. Town hall meeting. So there is going to be a town hall meeting April 21st at 7 p.m. So I'll repeat that for the people on Facebook Live. It's going to be April 21st 2021, this year, at 7 p.m. And so what we're going to go over, and the board is actually going to go over in the team, is about this country club. They're going to bring all the factual information. You guys are going to be able to ask a lot of questions. And our current president wants to make sure you guys are all aware of that and that you guys participate. We do have a limited capacity that can show up. Hopefully by that date, we can increase that number. Right now, it's approximately 25%. We had a pretty good turnout today, considering what we've been through in the last year. So thank you guys all, and I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to turn off all our recording devices. And if you guys have any brief questions for these individuals, once we're done, you guys can walk up there. Other than that, I tell them to run for their cars, but you guys have a great day.